It was 1992, and Audrey Hepburn was dying. The cancer had spread quietly, cruelly, the way it always does with people who seem too gentle for the world to let go easily. She was home in Switzerland, surrounded by the people she loved. Her sons, her partner Robert Wolders, the soft silence of the mountains she had chosen as her final refuge. But in those last weeks, something shifted. The people closest to her noticed it first, a faraway look in her eyes, a name that slipped from her lips in quiet moments, not Robert's name. Not her son's, a name from another time, another life, a life she had spent decades carefully folding away. And then one morning she asked to write a letter. A letter she had been meaning to write for 30 years. No one knew who it was for. Her son Luca would later say there were things about his mother he never fully understood. Things she carried alone, losses she never spoke of. And somewhere buried beneath the fame, the elegance, the iconic image the whole world worshipped, there was a wound that never fully healed. Because behind the little black dress and the pearls, behind the grace and the warmth that lit up every room she entered, Audrey Hepburn had a secret, a love she never forgot. A man who changed everything, and a choice that haunted her until her very last breath. This is the story they never told you. To the world, Audrey Hepburn was perfection. When she first appeared on movie screens in the early 1950s, audiences didn't just admire her, they were transfixed. She was unlike anything Hollywood had ever seen. Where others were smoldering and larger than life, Audrey was delicate, luminous, almost otherworldly. She had enormous dark eyes that seemed to understand everything and a laugh that made people feel like they had been let in on the most wonderful secret. Roman Holiday, 1953, the Academy Award. Then Sabrina, funny face. And then the role that would define her forever, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Holly Golightly. The name alone still conjures something, the little black Givenchy dress. The long cigarette holder. The wistful, searching look of a woman who wanted love but could never quite hold on to it. People said Audrey wasn't acting in that film. They said she was Holly Golightly, beautiful, longing, and just slightly out of reach. But no one knew how dangerously true that was. Because behind the elegance, Audrey's real life was far more complicated than anyone could see. She was born in Belgium in 1929. As a child in Nazi-occupied Netherlands, she watched her family lose everything. She went hungry for months. She watched people disappear. That experience carved something deep inside her that never left. It was why decades later, she gave herself to UNICEF with a ferocity that shocked even her closest friends. She had seen real suffering, she could never unsee it. By the time Hollywood found her, she had already survived several lifetimes. She married actor Mel Ferrer in 1954. They had a son, Sean. From the outside, it looked like happiness. But as the years passed, something was quietly, dangerously wrong. Mel was controlling, possessive. And Audrey, who had survived war, somehow could not find her footing inside her own marriage. And then she met him. His name was Albert Finney. It was 1967. Audrey was cast alongside the charismatic, unpredictable British actor in Two for the Road. A sharp, emotionally raw film about a marriage slowly falling apart. The script demanded something neither of them had shown on screen before: vulnerability, openness, the kind of unguarded honesty that can't be faked. And something happened on that set that nobody planned. Audrey had spent years being the composed one, the graceful one, the one who never cracked, but Albert Finney was different. He was wild and funny and completely unintimidated by her. He didn't treat her like an icon, he treated her like a woman, complicated, real, alive. And she responded to that in a way she hadn't responded to anyone in years. By the time filming wrapped, they were inseparable. She laughed differently with him, breathed differently. Friends who saw them together said they had never seen her so free, so completely, dangerously herself. But what happened next changed everything. Because the world in 1967 had no mercy for a married woman who fell in love with someone else. And Audrey, who had been built into a symbol of perfect grace, had more to lose than almost anyone alive. The pressure closed in from every direction. The image, the career, the public eye that never looked away. She made a choice, and that choice echoed through every year that followed. Audrey ended her marriage to Mel Ferrer in 1968. On paper, it looked like freedom, and in many ways it was. But the relationship with Albert Finney, as electric as it was, could not survive the real world. Two enormous careers, two powerful personalities. Two people who had fallen in love inside the beautiful, artificial bubble of a film set, where everything feels more vivid than ordinary life ever could. They faded, quietly. No bitter headlines. No dramatic collapse. Just a slow, aching disappearance, the way some loves do when the magic finally runs out. she threw herself into work. Then into a second marriage to Italian psychiatrist Andrea Dotti in 1969. They had a son together, Luca. For a while she tried to believe it was enough. She stepped back from Hollywood. Became a wife and mother in Rome, tried to build something quieter, something real. But Andrea was unfaithful, repeatedly, publicly. And Audrey, who had already sacrificed so much, endured it longer than anyone should have had to. By the time that marriage collapsed in 1982, she was 53 years old. She had survived war, 2 failed marriages, and miscarriages that shattered her each time they came. She had spent decades under the weight of being perfect for everyone else. And still she was Audrey Hepburn, still radiant, still devastating, still standing. But the truth behind all of it was far more surprising than anyone knew. Because even as she found a final, genuine peace with Robert Wolders, a partnership built on warmth and quiet understanding, she never stopped thinking about Albert Finney, not with obsession. Not with bitterness, but quietly. The way you think about the road you didn't take, the what if that never fully leaves you no matter how many years go by. In the late 1980s, Audrey came back to public life. Not for Hollywood, not for the cameras, for the children. She became a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador and threw herself into fieldwork with a ferocity that shook even the organization's most experienced veterans. Ethiopia, Sudan, El Salvador, Guatemala, Bangladesh, Vietnam. She sat in the dust beside starving children and held them and wept, and then she got up and did it all over again the next day. Those who worked alongside her said they had never seen anything like it. This wasn't charity for the cameras. This wasn't publicity. This was a woman paying back a debt she felt in her bones. She had once been that hungry child. She had once watched the world look away. She was not going to look away. But even as she poured every piece of herself into that mission, the question of Albert Finney lingered. In 1989, the two of them appeared together publicly. Photographs captured something unmistakable in Audrey's expression when she looked at him, a warmth that was different from the warmth she gave the rest of the world. Deeper, more specific. More private. People who knew her said she spoke of him sometimes, carefully, sparingly, but with a tenderness that no amount of composure could fully hide. And then, in 1992, the cancer came. Discovered after she returned from a humanitarian mission to Somalia. Colon cancer. Moving fast. And suddenly Audrey Hepburn, who had held everything so tightly for so long, began to let it go. It was in those final months that the people around her began to truly understand the weight of everything she had been carrying alone. The letter she asked to write in those final weeks, no one has ever confirmed who it was addressed to, but those closest to her have hinted across the years, quietly, carefully. Her son Luca spoke about his mother's emotional depth and her lifelong habit of keeping her truest feelings locked inside. Robert Wolders, who cared for her in those final months with extraordinary tenderness, said she was more open than she had ever been before, more reflective, more honest. Some regrets, he said quietly, but also immense gratitude. What is certain is this: Audrey Hepburn loved deeply, more than once and differently each time. She loved Mel Ferrer, even when that love became a prison. She loved Andrea Dotti, even after he broke her trust again and again. She loved Robert Wolders with a quiet, sustaining warmth that carried her through her final years. And she loved Albert Finney with a fire that was particular and irreplaceable, the kind that doesn't come twice. The kind you carry the rest of your life without ever being able to fully explain it to anyone. She died on January 20, 1993, 63 years old. At home in Switzerland, her sons at her side, the mountains visible through the window. Albert Finney, when asked about her in the years that followed, was always brief, always careful, never cold. He said she was extraordinary, and then he said nothing more, but here is what stopped everyone who looked closely enough. When Audrey's personal belongings were catalogued after her death, among them were photographs. And in those photographs, certain faces appeared more than others, more than the films. More than the awards, more than the public life the whole world thought it knew. Some things went with her, as she would have wanted. Audrey Hepburn left the world more beautiful than she found it. She left behind 2 sons who adored her, a body of film work that still moves people to tears decades later, and a UNICEF legacy that genuinely changed how humanitarian fieldwork was done. In 1993, she was posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Albert Finney lived until 2019. He died quietly at 72 without ever speaking publicly about what they had meant to each other. But maybe that silence was always the most honest tribute he could give. Because some stories are too real to be handed over to the world, Some loves survive precisely because they stay private, stay protected, stay exactly where they belong. Audrey Hepburn understood that better than anyone. She built her entire life on the art of holding something back just enough to stay whole. So what do you think? Did Audrey make the right choices? Could things have been different with Albert Finney, or are some loves simply never meant to survive the real world? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you think. And if stories like this one, the real lives behind the legends, the secrets Hollywood never wanted you to find, if that's what you're here for, subscribe. Because we have so many more waiting for you, don't miss what comes next.